Saturday mornings at 7 right here on AM 560, The Answer.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So the February jobs numbers are out. 20,000 jobs in February. That's well below the estimates from Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan of 175, 185,000 jobs.
It's a big difference.
Unemployment
I'm
rate.
not a numbers girl.
Unemployment rate dropped to 3.8%. I don't know that these numbers mean anything anymore in terms of indications of real growth. That's sort of the point. Because against that backdrop of those numbers, National Federation of Independent Businesses, NFIB, has been conducting this monthly survey for decades, employment survey. And, of course, you understand small businesses are the real engines of job creation in America. Chief economist for NFIB, William Dunkelberg, reports they've never seen results like this. Job creation broke the 45-year record in February with a net addition of 0.52 workers per firm. That's beats the previous record that was set in May of 1998. So NFIB is finding historic job creation in small businesses, which are the engines of job creation, and yet at the macro level, we undershot the street estimates on job creation for February, so it doesn't matter. For an answer to that question, we're pleased to be joined again by our friend Scott the Cow Guy, Scott Shalady, Fox business contributor. And Scott, before we begin, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but because we're friends and people come on the show, become friends.
And he gave you a cow jacket.
And
I have one too, by the way.
Give us both cow jackets. No, on a serious note, I don't know about this, if this is something you want made public, so I'm going to lurch into the breach. Express our condolences from AM 560 on the untimely passing of your brother recently.
Thank you.
Thank you. And he was a Chicago guy too. He was here in the suburbs, so I just wanted to do that on behalf of the family here.
Thank you.
All right, so getting to the numbers. Should we care about those February stats, particularly against the backdrop of this NFIB report?
Yeah, no. I mean, if you got excited about last month's number, which was a huge beat, you have to be disappointed about this one. But they're both so wildly out of line. You have to really start to look at the meat of the report. The meat of the report says it's like what you just said. It's great to be a worker in the United States right now. You have the biggest increase in earnings year over year in 10 years, 3.4%. I think it took us that long to get there. That's great. The labor force participation rate still at the highest it's been since 2013. So, I mean, as far as those types of things, the economy looks good. The jobs number, I think, is becoming increasingly not really something we look at. We kind of have to pull things over and look under the hood more than get the headline.
What about the average hourly earnings? Did those rise?
Yeah, I mean, it's up. It was up a little higher than expected. We were looking at something around 0.3%. It came in at 0.4%. So, yeah, that's good. So earnings are slowly but surely starting to tick through. But here's my problem, okay? The problem is that we have thrown so much at this economy, quantitative easing, for the average person out there, they probably glaze over when they hear that term. But the government has done so much to try to stimulate the economy since the financial crisis of 2008. And we're still not really seeing the fruits of that come through. So, for instance, it'd be like if you put in high-octane gasoline in your car, you should be able to measure that coming out of the exhaust. And what we're putting into our car, as far as our own economic engine, we're not getting the good readings coming out of the exhaust still. So we've got a leak somewhere. Jay Powell, the chairman of the Fed, he's there to kind of find it. But the problem is that for the stimulus that we've thrown at our economy, it's still not doing what it should be doing. Bottom line.
And so does that mean that Trump should pull back on his jawboning of Jay Powell when it comes to interest rates?
Well, I mean, he still says Jay Powell wants to raise rates. I don't think Jay Powell wants to do that. I think what the problem with the Fed now, and it's been a problem in the past, is that they give you too much. They try to forecast too much, right? And things change quicker than the Fed does, and they start to make them look like Keystone Cops. Now, they've gone to a very, very what we call a dovish stance, where they're going to be looking to not raise interest rates. And arguably, there's some people out there saying the next move in interest rates is going to be a cut. So the Fed is now looking to be a little bit more flexible that way, and they say they're quote unquote data dependent, which I think is great. And the data is coming through saying maybe we shouldn't have been raising rates like we had done. And you know what? Something that's really been a big problem is the strong dollar. That's another one. And so those things go hand in hand. When you raise interest rates, that dollar gets stronger, and that's been a problem for our exporters. So there's been some trouble on that horizon, and that strong dollar has not been good for us. So that's another thing to kind of keep an eye on. So wages, it's great to be an American worker. As far as an exporter, it's bad to be an American exporter. We have a strong dollar, and that's been hard.
Right. So, I mean, I know you're in the investotainment business, Scott.
Investotainment.
Yes, but
I like that.
But here's
Never
the
heard
like.
that before.
Everything is snapshots that we're supposed to read so much meaning into. So, the CNBC reporting yesterday. U.S. households see biggest decline in net worth since the financial crisis. Well, yeah, it was a decline for the fourth quarter when the stock market dropped in December. But now there's been a significant rebound. So it's a snapshot in time that we're past. The trade deficits and the economic illiteracy surrounding trade deficits. Largest trade deficit ever spells trouble for Trump. No, only because Trump was taking the same position of the neo-Keynesian morons in the D.C. press corps. And the same sort of jobs discussion we're having. It seems to me we just kind of need to get back to fundamentals of what we know works, and very much like actually Trump did in his speech at CPAC, where he talked about freedom versus socialism and what the two systems beget. So which path do you want to go down? Don't you feel like that we get into this minutia and try and divine meaning to these ephemeral indicators rather than focusing on fundamentals and just driving the fundamentals?
You're exactly right. And you know what? To his credit, Trump did play small ball, right? He did move the runners around with the tax cuts. You know, that was a great idea, and the regulations that he's taken away. Those things have been a big, good thing for the economy, and that's probably where we're, resting on right now because of those small things. Not small things; they were actually very big, but they don't really get the headlines. But he's done the right things. He's done the fundamentally correct things to get the economy back to where it needs to go. And you're right. Everybody needs to sell ad space, right? That's why I'm a big guy wearing a cow jacket, right? They need to be able to sell ad space. Right. So, and that's why we look at these numbers like we do, and we overanalyze them, and we get this. Everybody starts to suck their own exhaust, right? So at the end of the day,
I like that phrase.
We could use some
So yeah, the small ball the president's played is coming to fruition. It's the best time in a long time to be an American worker. The fundamentals are there. It's just that I think we got a little bit ahead of ourselves overanalyzing those things, and we raised rates maybe a little bit too much than we should have, and that's kind of manifested itself in a stronger dollar. But ultimately, with the wage increases we've had, best in 10 years, and the unemployment rate, I mean, it's hard to argue.
I think you make a great point about ad space, and Amy would like to introduce you to Balance of Nature now.
Get your fruits and veggies in a capsule. Hey, this $15 hour minimum wage hike, it's going to be taking place in Illinois and Maryland. Is it sustainable? I mean, you have report after report now, Whole Foods, where people are getting cut back hours significantly because of this $15 minimum wage.
Yeah, I mean, my answer would be careful what you wish for, because slowly but surely you're going to go, the $15 an hour kiosk is what you're going to have, right? So you can complain as much as you like, and if you want to go down that route, employers will start putting more and more technology in the face of the consumer, and there's not going to be anybody there to make $15 an hour. And if you're a municipality, how do you tax that kiosk? I mean, everybody's got to be careful about what they wish for, because the government should stay out of mandating wages. I think that should be a supply and demand issue on a local level all across the country. So I'm a little leery of that, and by saying if that's actually a stimulus to the economy, why don't we pay everybody $100 an hour, right?
Exactly. Speaking of the government interference and supply and demand, as well as productivity, we've got a new proposal. You're a Chicago expat. That's a phrase we keep saying more and more these days. We got a proposal from Governor Spalding here to graduate the state's income tax. The good news is, if you believe it, 97% of earners in Illinois get tax relief. His proposal right now, 4.95% flat state income tax. His proposal would graduate it. 4.95 would stay for 100 to 250, but then it jumps to 7.75 for for 250 to 500 grand, 7.85, 500 to a million, 7.95 over a million, and this against the backdrop of the largest income tax increase in Illinois just 18 months ago. So I don't know how anybody considers this real relief. But anyway, the idea of graduating the state's income tax so we can experience the renaissance going on in places like California and New York. What's your view?
I mean, I think it's going to be the wind at the backs of the people leaving the state even faster. I mean, the idea that you're going to be able to tax your way out of this is absolutely insane. You listen to the platform that the left has been on now for the last 6 to 8 months. Why aren't we talking about spending cuts? I mean, I don't understand why we're always talking about taxes and new taxes and more taxation. We should be talking about spending cuts. We can't continue to do this. And what I would like to ask them, especially Governor Spalding, is what is your fair share? I mean, what are you getting at here? You know, how many people do you want to live in the country? What's the number? And then what's the number as far as your fair share of income tax you think these people should be paying? Because the upper 1% is already paying around 35%. I don't know, somewhere around that level. What's fair in that fair share? That's what I'd like to know. So the very fact that they think they can tax their way out of this problem is a mess. And the people should be using that as a win in their sales to get out of that state as soon as possible.
If you don't believe Scott the Cowguy Shilady is ahead of the learning curve, then let me just say he moved to Indiana a while ago because of this gathering storm that was coming to Chicagoland. And boy, oh boy, if only some people like me would have followed suit. Scott Shilady, Scott the Cowguy, Fox Business contributor. Scott, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
Have a good weekend, guys. See ya.
See ya.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The